Okay, let's just jump right in. Have you ever looked at a freshly signed biological evaluation report, your BER, breathed a huge sigh of relief, and thought, awesome, we are officially done with that? It's super common. We've all been there. But today, we're going to challenge a pretty dangerous assumption, the idea that a signed BER is just some static, one-and-done hurdle. Actually, assuming your evaluation is finished just because the ink is dry, that's literally one of the biggest risks you can introduce into a medical device's life cycle. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're completely shifting our mindset. We're moving away from the old document creation mindset, and we're diving straight into the operational reality of managing device changes in the real world. We're zeroing in on lifecycle management and change assessment, specifically how to keep your biological safety totally current without constantly reinventing the wheel. Here's our agenda for today's explainer. 1. The living evaluation. 2. Decoding device changes. 3. The proportionate response. 4. Assessing legacy devices. And finally, 5. Post-market signals. Let's get to it. Section 1. The living evaluation. Maintaining the baseline. Let's start by totally dismantling this myth of the perfectly finished permanent report. Look, a signed BER only reflects your device exactly as it was at the absolute second it was signed. But out in the real world, devices, materials, processes, they are constantly changing. There's a massive contrast here between two very different approaches. On the left side, you've got the outdated one-time report mindset. You sign it, shove it in a drawer, assume it's valid forever, and let material drift go completely unnoticed. On the right, though, is the living evaluation. This actively monitors the baseline. It updates when there's a change, and it's heavily linked to your change control system. This living view catches material drift early on, way before it ever turns into a patient harm issue. Because quite frankly, an out-of-date evaluation that no longer matches the physical device is a major biological safety risk.
Section 2. Decoding device changes, the domino effect.
Real-world manufacturing changes absolutely ripple through a device's chemistry. And these changes, they can come from literally anywhere. Materials, suppliers, packaging, or even just a shelf life extension. This brings us to a major trap that so many teams fall into, right here. Same grade is a claim to verify, not a fact. In the lifecycle process, this is known as Discipline Rule 4. So when your purchasing team excitedly switches to a cheaper supplier for a polymer resin and they assure you it's the same grade, you cannot just take their word for it. You absolutely have to verify that comparability with actual data. Never, ever just assume a swap is biologically neutral. Let's break down why that same grade claim is so incredibly risky. Purchasing might love the cost savings, sure. But a new supplier can introduce an entirely different set of variables, even if it's the exact same nominal grade of plastic. Their resin lots might vary. They might use a totally different additive package for stability. Maybe their manufacturing uses different processing aids, or they tweak the cure profile, which completely alters the resulting chemical byproducts. Literally, even something as minor as a slightly weaker cleaning validation can leave behind brand new manufacturing residues on your final device. And every single one of those things directly impacts the potential leachables that a patient might be exposed to. Section 3. The proportionate response. Finding the defensible middle. Now we're at the absolute heart of modern lifecycle management, finding that defensible middle ground when a change actually hits your supply chain. We need a systematic way to react. You want to avoid the two crazy extremes. You can't just reflexively dismiss a change and wave it through. That's under-testing, and it creates unmitigated risk for the patient. But on the flip side, you can't just demand a full, from-scratch biological retest for every tiny tweak. That over-testing is a huge waste of time and money, and crucially, it flat-out violates the 3 R's of animal testing: replacement, reduction, and refinement. So the only defensible answer? Proportionality. Your evidence has to be sized perfectly to the actual impact of the change. To actually achieve that proportionality, we use a structured process, usually guided by something like the T014 template for change impact assessment. Step 1. Describe the change precisely. What exactly is shifting? Step 2. Identify the specific constituents, biological hazards, and endpoints this change actually touches. Step 3. Judge the impact. And Step 4. Generate the proportionate evidence you need to close that specific gap, and then update your BER and risk file. It's a highly targeted strike. Let's actually apply this to a fictional case study, the VascuPort device. This matrix maps out how different manufacturing changes trigger very specific parts of our evaluation. So, change 01 is a supplier change. This hits the chemistry first, and it only reopens biological endpoints if the chemistry flags a real difference. Change 02, a new colorant. This introduces new constituents, so it specifically impacts the chemistry and the sensitization endpoint. Change 03 is a new cure profile for an adhesive, which alters the process, so we've got to assess residual monomers and chemistry. And change 4, an updated ethylene oxide sterilization cycle with a longer aeration time. Now, even though longer aeration is a good thing, we still have to confirm the new residual profile and revalidate the process. Notice what we're not doing? We aren't rerunning the entire BER for any of these. We just target the specific impact. To pull this off smoothly, we use a tiered response system. This ensures we don't just go from 0 to 100 unless we absolutely need to. Tier 1 is just a documented rationale, showing there's no plausible biological impact. Easy. If there might be an impact, we escalate to Tier 2, a chemistry comparison against our original baseline. If that chemistry check flags a concern, then we move to Tier 3, which is targeted endpoint evidence for that specific hazard. And it's only for massive, fundamental, sweeping shifts that we escalate to Tier 4, a broader reevaluation. You might have noticed we always lead with chemistry. Like we've covered before, the very first question when a change occurs is simply, are new or altered chemical constituents present? We run the comparison against our baseline. If it's comparable, we document our rationale and stop right there. But let's say that chemistry check does flag a difference. We still don't immediately jump to animal testing. No way. We lean on the toxicological assessment you're already familiar with. And we just ask, given these new constituents, is the exposure level still acceptable? Finally, if, and literally only if, the tox assessment shows that the exposure to a specific chemical is not clearly acceptable, do we ask our last question. Is the specific biological hazard in question? So going back to our Vascuport example, if that new colorant flagged a sensitization concern during the chemistry and tox reviews, then we exclusively target the sensitization biological endpoint. Keep these three distinct: chemistry, toxicology, biology. Do not conflate them, and never skip straight to the end. Section 4, Assessing Legacy Devices. Dealing with the past via T016. Okay, let's apply this exact same logic of proportionality to older legacy devices that are already on the market. Say you have a device evaluated under an older standard, and now you need to prove it meets a newer one, like ISO 10993-1-2025. What usually happens? Managers panic. They demand an automatic, full reevaluation. But throwing out perfectly valid existing evidence just to repeat sound work, that is an unbelievable waste of effort and budget. The proportionate, intelligent path here is a gap analysis. You keep the sound evidence you already have, and you target only the genuine gaps based on actual biological risk. Let's dive into what a gap assessment actually looks like in practice using a tool like the T016 template. You aren't starting from scratch. You're basically interrogating your old file. Is the contact profile still perfectly accurate for how the device is used today? Is the chemical characterization adequate by modern standards? Were the constituents genuinely assessed toxicologically, or did someone just run a checkbox test back in the day? And crucially, are hazards being addressed by actual biological risk rather than just relying on some old prescriptive checklist from 10 years ago? You critically appraise what you have, and you only generate new data where the old file actually fills current regulatory expectations. Section 5. Post-market signals. Closing the feedback loop. So we've talked about supply chain tweaks and legacy standards, but we also have to gather data from the wild. A truly living evaluation requires active vigilance. You have to be actively screening your field complaints and adverse events for plausible biological signals. And you're not just looking for a random, isolated hiccup. You are looking for cumulative trends. Are there weird patterns of local tissue reactions? Are you seeing delayed hypersensitivity in patients? What about reports of unexpected device degradation? Or maybe the materials turning a strange color out in the field? These are giant red flags that a material or manufacturing process might have drifted over time, which completely alters your biological safety profile. When you do spot one of these signals, it absolutely has to feed back into your evaluation through the CAPA loop, corrective and preventive action. Step 1, you investigate the biological cause of the signal. Step 2, you reappraise your original benefit-risk conclusion to see if it still holds up. Depending on what you find in Step 3, you might need to generate new evidence, make a manufacturing change, or, in serious scenarios, initiate a field safety action. Whatever happens, Step 4 is 100% non-negotiable. You have to update the biological evaluation and the risk file to make sure your baseline is accurate again. You just can't treat vigilance as a quality issue that's completely isolated from biology. And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. If your device's manufacturing process, supplier, or material changes tomorrow, and let's be real, it definitely will, is your biological evidence robust and living enough to adapt proportionately? Or is your BER just sitting there as a dusty file in a drawer, meaning you're going to be forced to start entirely from scratch? Mastering lifecycle management really comes down to mastering the proportionate response. It saves a ton of time, it respects the 3 Rs, and most importantly, it keeps our focus exactly where it belongs, on genuine patient safety,